On the surface, it looks like the kind of alliances we have in the region are very much structured along sectarian lines, especially recently, because Saudi Arabia has managed to rally many of the Sunni states behind it in its rivalry with Iran. And of course, in the other camp, we have Iran, Syria, Hezbollah, and in part Iraq. So it seems like it's a Sunni camp and a Shia camp. But that kind of explanation doesn't go very far in explaining why we have these alliances. I would argue that behind these alliance making, we have sort of traditional realist power logics. So Saudi Arabia is rivaling with Iran, maybe mainly for strategic reasons, for security reasons. And of course the same for Iran and Hezbollah. This is really about survival, especially for Hezbollah. So we should take these sort of very normal international politics considerations into account when we try to explain both the region's conflicts and alliance making. But having said that, we shouldn't just disregard these sectarian dynamics, because they have taken on, you could say, a life of their own. So state leaders and the various non-state actors, the way they have used the sectarian logics to rally for war, to legitimize what they're doing, for instance, in Syria or in Yemen, and to delegitimize opponents. That has meant that sectarian dynamics have taken on a life of their own. They have become reinforced, and in that sense become very real social facts. You could say that sectarian identities have become securitized. And in many ways, the way we see sectarian dynamics now play out is both they have been widened and they have been deepened in the region. So we have not only state actors and state leaders using sectarian logics, but also religious leaders. We see it on social media platforms. We see it on the big Arab satellite channels, that they're using a lot of sectarianism. And the problem with that is also that there are really no sort of counter narratives to these sectarian logics. There's no counter forces to go against these kind of narratives. I think it's very important. In part, it's important to distinguish between the kind of sectarian logics that we have in sort of the central part of the Middle East and the Gulf, and then separate it from what's going on in North Africa, where you don't have the same kind of sectarian dynamics, of course, because you don't have the same kind of sectarian communities in these countries. So we have to distinguish between different parts of the region. But I think it's also very important to analytically distinguish between the way that sectarianism is used as an instrument by these leaders and non-state actors, but then also to investigate how it has become a social fact of many of the conflicts that we see in the region. So for instance, Syria, even though the Syrian uprising didn't have any sectarian dimension from the beginning, then the way the Assad regime used these kind of fearful tactics with minorities, they were fearful of what would happen if a Sunni majority got power, and also on the other hand how some of the Sunni groups have really used a very harsh sort of anti-Alawite rhetoric. That has become real, and a real part of Syria that we have to take into consideration also when we think about a political solution to Syria, and when we think about whether Syria can be upheld as one state.